Welcome everyone to Sunday Wisdom Sessions. And when conceiving of the format, I had to keep in mind that we've got students of different levels of exposure, of experience, of association with the subject. So how do we take up a session that would be enlightening, interesting for those who have just heard me once or have met on our travels? I know some of you from Ananda Spa, some of you I can see joining from Nairobi, some of you joining from Aruba. Wonderful. And you may have just heard a lecture. But also for those of you who've been attending the weekly sessions for years, how can we add value to your study, to your life? So the format of the Sunday Wisdom Sessions going forward, and it's going to be hopefully every Sunday, except the few times where we cannot make it because there's no or not good enough Wi-Fi on flights. Besides those times, we're going to aim for every Sunday. Now, the format is, we are going to take up an inspiring quality. These qualities and the section that we have chosen for the beginning of these sessions is from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, in which from verse 13 onwards, it talks about the 35 qualities of a bhakta. A bhakta is a devotee of God. We can understand this better as a seeker of truth. And the beautiful thing about each of these qualities, and we'll take up one quality a week. The beautiful thing is that you can practice it relatively, means you don't have to be perfect in it. But there's also what it looks like in the ultimate, 100%. A person who's achieved enlightenment is 100% of that quality. So we get a picture of what perfection looks like, an absolute seeker, but also how we can fine tune. So we'll take up a quality first for the first 20 minutes or so. Then in the second 20 minutes, I'll take up a question that has been submitted. And this will be one question from the previous Q&A session. And I'll go into depth of that question. So today we're going to be talking about ego. That's the question for today. So I'll put that up on the screen later on. And we'll go into depth about how to answer this question and some practical takeaways from that as well. And the last 20 minutes is going to be an open Q&A. But since there are quite a few of us joining, we thought what might be easier is that if you have a question that comes up during the session, or you have a question from earlier from your study, you can message admin in our Zoom chat, and those questions will be shortlisted and will be presented on the screen later on in the session. So this is the format we're going to try. A quality for inspiration. A question for the week, where we dive into detail. And then we'll take up as many questions as we can in the time that we have remaining, which is from you, live, present. We okay, everyone? You can just signal. Everybody all right? Okay, perfect. The qualities of a seeker of truth. Each quality is different. There will be a quality like forgiveness. There will be a quality like being friendly. There are different qualities. And you can find the quality that inspires you and take that up and start practicing it. You should not get demotivated. Oh my goodness, Sudhakar, there are 35 qualities. I am so far from being a seeker of truth. No, it's not that. They've given us a buffet. So you can take one of the qualities that inspires you, take it up, instill it, imbibe it, and what you'll find is that if you get to the base of that quality, all of the qualities lift, because the base is the same. And that base is your evolution, your personality. So you take up one quality that inspires you, but if you get it right, if you get it from a transformational perspective, from a personality rooted nature change, you will find all the qualities left. Now, there's one physics apparatus that shows this. It's called Pascal's apparatus. And in this apparatus, it shows you how water finds its level. So you can see there's a blue liquid. Now, each tube that you see there has got different shape, a different size. You can see one is a narrow tube, one has got two bulges, one has got a little bit of a, I call it the scenic route, very curvy. And the other one is a broad tube. Now, it doesn't matter which one you decide to choose. To pour the liquid inside, if you choose the curvy cylinder, all of them raise the same because the base is the same. And the base that you will find here is that each of these qualities has something in common. And 2 points for a seeker of truth. So keep it in mind as we study these different qualities. The first is absence of ego. A seeker of truth, a devotee of God, they're humble. There's an absence of ego. And the second quality for a seeker of truth, a devotee of God, is that they see the spirit, the self, the consciousness in everyone and everything. To the extent that you see it, so are you spiritual. You see the spirit in one and all. So these are the two base qualities. Now we get on to the first quality of our Sunday Wisdom Session series and look at what it starts. In cricket, this would be equivalent to opening batsman, first ball, hitting a six, straight drive, classic, beautiful. The first quality is Advesta, Sarva, Bhutanam, which means hatred to no being, not hating any being. Now, the reason why these great thinkers, Sage Vyasa, who wrote the Bhagavad Gita, put it in this way, put it negatively. It doesn't say loves all beings. Why phrase it like this? No hatred to any being. Why phrase it in the negative? The reason why they do it is because when we see this quality, loving all beings, each of us will think, I am a great seeker. I love so many people. I love my colleagues. I love my family members. I love my friends. Oh, when I think about it, I can't even count the number that I love. And we will think we've got this quality down. But the test of your spirituality, the test of your being a seeker is, who do you hate? The strength of a chain is its weakest link. So imagine a chain, and you've got all titanium rings. All the links are titanium. And we think that's the strength of the chain. But on one of the links, you have paper. That is actually where the strength of the chain is. I remember there was a colleague of ours from Johannesburg, and his family used to run a security company. So alarms, electric fencing, and those of you from South Africa understand that this is very normal. And they had electrified and had the state-of-the-art alarm system, top security. And yet, burglars found a way to get into their home. Why? Because the one part that they did not secure was where the workers used to access. So for the workers' part of the house, they did not secure it. That is where they came through. Similarly, it doesn't matter how many we love. Where do we hate? And this brings up the discussion for today. What is love? What is hate? Love, when we have the live in-person sessions and we have the opportunity to go into detail with the interaction, it's interesting how something that we use so often, such an everyday language, we're not able to define. What is love? And each person will give a different definition. Love is a feeling of identification. Love is a feeling of oneness. You feel what the other person feels. You feel their joys. You celebrate their joys. You mourn their sorrows. You experience what they experience. It's identification, oneness. And just as the different parts of your body. So when you see the different parts of your body, your right hand, your left hand, your right foot, your left foot, your stomach, your chest, etc., you see them as all part of you. You don't have a preference for your left hand over your right hand. You see it as all one body. Me equals body. But hatred sets in when we start to see an otherness. When we see outside of the one, anything that threatens the oneness, anything that's the competition to the oneness, anything outside the oneness is potential hate. So what Sage Vyasa does so brilliantly here is instead of looking at where we identify, he says, where are you not identifying? And makes us ask the question, why not? Why do you not see the oneness there? Why don't you feel the oneness? The reason why we don't feel the oneness is because of selfishness. The equation that we use, love plus selfishness equals attachment. Where is that otherness? Where is that boundary that we draw? So when we draw that boundary, whatever's within the boundary we love, whatever's outside doesn't cater to inside, we hate. And that's the attachment. Attachment becomes hate. It starts off as love, but with selfishness becomes hate. How do we get from hatred to love? Remove the selfishness. The attachment is that feeling with selfishness to those that we love. And those outside the attachment, outside the love, we hate. So if we want to start practicing this quality, not hating any being, we've got to see, why is our love limited? And it is limited because of attachment. The attachment stops us from loving. So we have a feeling going from you to the person that you love, to the circle that you love, but it stops there because of attachment. You love one person preferentially. Why? Why do you love one person more than another? Why do you love your family? Because you say, my family, one family. Because you're able to identify yourself as the family, you have oneness. Anyone threatening the family or outside the family could be nephews and nieces, not the same love. Why isn't it the same love? Why don't you see everybody as the same? Eric Fromm puts it brilliantly. He says, if a person loves only one other person and is indifferent to all others, his love is not love, but a symbiotic attachment or an enlarged egotism. So we are not really loving the other person. We're loving what the other person does for us. In fact, if you want to love, there is only one form of love, and it is universal love. Everything else is attachment. It's attachment to a circle that you identify with. And when you identify with a particular circle, whatever's inside we call love, but whatever's outside, hate. Love and hate are two sides of the coin until you get to universal love. So how do we do this? How do we start spreading our love, expanding the circle? There's a beautiful documentary. It's called Earthling. And in this documentary, it gives the premise that at one stage there was extreme gender inequality. Men were treated as superior. There was genderism. And we got over that by understanding we're equal. There's no difference in talent. There's no difference in thinking. We're equal. So we passed genderism. And then we got to a particular point where it could have been, in certain countries, it was based on race, on the color of the skin. One race being superior to another. And then we passed that, or at least we're aspiring for that. Different stages of it in different parts of the world. But we saw that it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, inside we're similar. We have the same organs, we have feelings, we have a mind, we have an intellect. So we found the common denominator and we passed racism. Then we had religion. We saw World War II. We have different wars being fought in different parts of the world based on religion. One religion persecuting another religion. Why? Because we identify with those who share the same beliefs as us. But those who don't share it, not even tolerant. It is antagonism, adversity, war. When we look past that, we're able to do it because the bottom line of all of these is we're all human beings. We feel the same. It doesn't matter which part of the world that Avani and myself travel to. The lectures are customized depending on the audience. And so, for instance, in Latin America, they say that they are very much more mind-led. So they like a little bit more animation, a little bit more emotion, and you must appeal to, they like a little bit more feeling in the lectures. In certain parts, you go to Switzerland, they like it to be more structured, the presentation. But doesn't matter the country, every set of human beings have more or less the same problems. Attachment to their children, attachment to their business, anxiety over their health, anxiety over the geopolitics of the place. All human beings. So we get to a particular point where we're able to see a little bit further because we found the common denominator. But then look at what one species is doing to all other species in the world. 80 billion animals are massacred for the satisfaction of 2 inches. You don't enjoy taste before the tongue, you don't enjoy it after the tongue. So for 2 inches of the tongue, 80 billion animals, other beings, are massacred for one species. And this is not including fish. If you include fish, that's another 100 plus billion. 5 million fish a minute for one species. What about the environment? Forests being taken down. So how do we start caring about the environment? How do we start caring about other beings? Not hating them. By finding the common denominator. How are we one? And that's why the documentary is called Earthlings. We share the same planet. Beautiful. We're one. Now, when you think about it, why do you love your family? And it's not that everybody in your family is very friendly, easy to love, has similar characteristics as you. Why do we love our family? We love our family because same what? Same blood. If you go to the bottom of it, it's actually about they have the same blood as me. What an arbitrary reason to love. And if your love is based on that, actually, have you taken a DNA test? Are you sure those are your parents? We don't know for sure. So on the idea and in legal documents, alleged father, alleged mother, because you're not sure. Even though we're not sure, we're not 100%, but because we share the same blood, there's a feeling, there's an obligation for family. Some people move beyond this and they go towards those who have, we gave the example, same religion, same beliefs, same community. We stretch it, human beings. What would be the lowest, not the lowest, the one common denominator that would ensure universal love? So you can either unmute or you're welcome to put your answers in the chat. The lowest, the one common denominator is the spirit self within. So if you look at this diagram here, depending on which part of you identify with, that's what you end up loving. So if you identify with your body, those with the same blood or the same color skin you identify with, and those outside of that, agitation, confrontation. So starting from yourself, here we go. So here's the diagram. So A human being is made up of matter plus spirit. The material component is your body, your mind, and your intellect. When you identify with one part of your human being component, which is your body, you love those that have similar characteristics. Outside of those, there's hate. When you go to the mind, you love those that cater to your feelings, to your beliefs. But outside that, hate. Intellect, you love those with the same ideas as you. We're able to stretch it. Here we're sharing ideas and we're stretching the love. But if we are able, instead of identifying with the blood within ourselves, with the color of the skin, with the beliefs within, with ideas and the philosophies, if you can identify with the spirit in yourself and understand that that same spirit, that same consciousness, that substratum of everything is in one and all, where will your love not be? It is all pervading. It is universal. And it is universal because you are one with the universe. Because the consciousness is in everything. So a spiritual person, a person who's seen the truth, realized the truth, has understood that that spirit within them is the same spirit in everybody. So where do we start? So this is where we can see the circles diagram now. So the circles diagram is, if you just identify with yourself, it's a small circle of love. Not much love, not much identification. Stretch it. Stretch it to the family. Stretch it to the community. Find the common denominator. Stretch it to the country. Why should we war with each other? We're of the same country. But then, neighboring country, there's a fight. You get on well with everybody inside your house, but the neighbor, you have conflict with. How do you stretch it? We're all human beings. How do we get to all beings? We're all earthlings. How do we get to everything? Not just beings, but even the environment. Everything is the spirit. So what a quality we start off with. Advesta, Sarva, Bhutanam. Hating, not hating any being. So let us identify, who do we hate? Where does our love break down? Sister-in-law, could be a colleague. Why do you hate them? Ask yourself that. Where you hate says more about you than it does about them, because it shows you where your attachment is. Identify that attachment. That's what we need to work with. In fact, we should thank the person that we hate. You have given me insight into my personality. You've given me an opportunity to practice this incredible quality. Examine that attachment. And then start practicing how to see the oneness in that person. And by understanding the oneness, reduce the hate, reduce the otherness, spread the circle. In order to do that, we also, side by side, have to keep on getting knowledge of how we are one. So, how are we all earthlings? How do we all have similar feelings? So we need more knowledge to understand how we are one. So this is the first quality. Now we move on to the second component of our session today, and that is question of the week. And the question of the week is, we'll put it up on the screen for you. What is ego? What causes it? And how do we reduce ego? Okay, so great question. Some overlap from the quality that we're studying. So let's get into it. What is ego? I'm going to take a definition from Swamiji's book. So my teacher and mentor, Swami Parthasarathy, one of the introductory books is called Governing Business and Relationships. And he defines ego as the ego is an exhibition, an overemphasis of one's person, an exaggerated projection of oneself over others. This is the definition of ego. So when you are overemphasizing your personality, you are being egoistic. When you are catering to your personality over others, you are being egocentric. Your interests are centered around your ego. Now, every human being has ego. Do we increase it or do we decrease it? Now, why do I say that every human being has ego? The very fact that you're born as an individual means that there is an ego there. This cycle of birth and death, that's a topic for another day, continues as long as your personality is there. When there is no ego, you transcend the cycle of birth and death, enjoy moksha, liberation. But for now, what do we mean by ego? So if you have a look at this diagram on slide 12, you see that a human being, you, are made up of what we covered earlier, matter and spirit. So you've got the body, mind, and intellect, and you've got the other aspect, the spiritual component, the self, the spirit, you. If you focus on the left-hand side, the material component, the body, mind, intellect, that we can refer to as ego. All of us have it, the body, mind, intellect. This is our false personality. I say it's false because these are like clothes that you wear. They're just covering. But your real personality is the spirit, the self. It doesn't change. It's been there throughout. You can put different clothes, you can put different types of bodies on this personality, you can put different feelings on it, happiness sometimes, sorrow sometimes. You can put honor, dishonor, intellectual concepts on it. But the one part that stays the same, your real personality, your true personality is the self, the spirit. And the tragedy is we don't know it. What do we know? The ego. And we pamper this ego. We beautify the body. Nothing wrong with beautifying the body. We pamper the mind. We give the mind all the things that it likes, avoid things that it dislikes. But we're only taking care of our false personality. So when we talk about the ego is referring to your body, your mind, your intellect. And the body, mind, intellect needs due care. It has to be maintained, it has to be looked after, yes. But when there is an overemphasis, when there is an exaggerated importance, when you highlight the my over others, that is being egoistic. So how does this thought of ego fit into our structure? So we're going to add one more aspect into the diagram. Some of you are familiar with BMI. You've heard of the BMI diagram, right? All seasoned students here, so you know it's not body mass index, it's body, mind, intellect. Where does ego fit in this diagram? Ego is a type of thought, and it's the type of thought that arrogates things to oneself. This is my work. This is my opinion. This is how I feel about that. So it's that overemphasis on me and my. So the body we're very clear about, but what propels the body to act is the mind, your feelings, your intellect, your thinking and your reasoning, but also your ego, which is that me and my. And just as the intellect has to manage the mind, to control the mind's feelings, impulses, desires, it's got to manage it. Make sure that the feelings don't victimize you, the emotions don't overwhelm you. Same thing we have to do with the ego. The ego should not overtake your personality, where it causes trouble in your relationship, where it impedes your work. So, first question, what is ego? Everybody clear? It's the thought of highlighting, emphasizing me, my body, mind, intellect. Okay? Now, the second part of the question. What causes it and how do we reduce ego? So what causes it is by constantly thinking about my body, my mind, my intellect. The reason why we keep on thinking about my body, my mind, my intellect is because this is how we've been brought up. Our society encourages, depending if you're egoistic or not, society, marketing encourages, highlights selfishness. It highlights you thinking of your body, of your mind, of your intellect constantly. So much so that we're so caught up in our particular bubble, our particular enclave, that we're not able to see the person next to us. We're not able to identify with them. We're not able to experience some oneness with them because of this exaggerated importance on our body, our mind, our intellect. Think about a problem that you're experiencing. If a friend was to consult you about a problem that they are experiencing in the office or at home, how eloquent would we be? You would quote perhaps the Bhagavad Gita. You would give some Vedanta. You would talk about a particular friend is going through some pain. You would say, even this shall pass away. You have all the lines ready. You are able to give the advice so freely. Why? Because it's not you. But as soon as you're in that particular position where your company is battling, you're experiencing stress and anxiety, your body is not doing well, a loved one is battling with a disease, what happens to you? Not able to think clearly, not able to use that advice, that knowledge. Why? Ego. The ego clouds your thinking. That me and my and what I'm going through becomes so predominant, we don't have access to the knowledge. We lose it. And this is actually the backdrop of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna himself is a great warrior. He's fought so many battles. But in this situation, he has to fight against family. He's not prepared. Even though he was thinking about it for 13 years. This was inevitable. Just about when the battle's about to begin, he collapses. Not able to handle his own challenge. Why? my family, my uncles, my cousins. It's time to fight. You've been through all this analysis. Why are you thinking about it now? That my came through so strong. Now, how do we reduce the ego? How do we reduce selfishness? The way to reduce ego is with our intellect, understanding why the ego is negative and why moving towards our real personality, the spirit, is positive. If you highlight, pamper, consolidate the ego, you get more and more agitated, you get more and more unhappy. When you move towards the spirit, the real part of you, you become unwavering. You're able to handle situations better with grace, ups and downs, health, ill health. And ultimately, you reach perfect happiness. How do we understand this? What are some of the examples of the ego being detrimental to us? One, work. It ruins your work. If you are thinking about yourself when you are working, when I say thinking about yourself, exaggerated importance, remember? So when there is a lot of being self-conscious, when you have to perform, when you have to do a particular action, it could be giving a talk. When you start thinking, what am I going to say? And you've already got the talk ready and it might only be 5 minutes long. So what am I going to say? What are they going to think of me? Oh, I haven't done this before. All you have to do is just go and give a talk, like how you give a talk to your kids at home, captive audience. You're so eloquent. You're able to lecture to them for hours. Same thing. Why is it when there's an audience that you're not able to perform? Because the ego gets in the way. It disturbs the action. Similarly, you might be a very good singer, but only in the shower, only in the car. If somebody asks and says, Debbie, I heard you're a very good singer. Could you give us a small tune in front of this online audience? There'll be croaking. I'm not sure. I'm just giving Debbie as an example. But there will be, you won't be able to give it out because of the focus on yourself. So when we talk about working without ego and how to perform your best action, sportsmen describe this as the zone, the flow. It's just acting. Why are you thinking about yourself unnecessarily? Just perform the action. You've got a talk to present, present. You've got a class to teach, teach. You've got an assignment to submit, submit. Everything else is noise. In our relationships, this ego is such a problem because we want things to be my way. And we're not able to see the other person's point of view. The trouble in relationships is that we want others to behave in the way we like them to be, rather than understanding they will behave according to who they are. It seems so simple. And that's the beauty of this philosophy. It's so down to earth. People will be what they are. So your expectation can't be according to what you like. That is ego. It has to be according to reality. So when we start relating to people and the world without the lens of the ego, without the mind's likes and dislikes, we're able to see truth. And we have a beautiful relationship because we relate as it is. And the last one is, it ruins our happiness because there is no limit to how much you can cater to the ego. How much to cater to the body. So I went to a beautiful restaurant. I said, oh, which restaurant? It was Italian. Oh, but have you tried the Italian restaurant on this side of town? Oh, no, I haven't. You must go. Okay. I'll put on my list. And that bucket list now is not emptying. The bucket list is increasing. It's never ending. You cannot satisfy the ego. And the more you try, the more unfulfilled desires you have. And the more unfulfilled desires you have, the more agitated you are. And when you start moving towards the spirit, the self, you start reducing the desire. You start reducing the agitation, you get more happy. What a state. More and more peace. So, what is ego? Ego is this overemphasis on one's personality. What causes it? Thought. Which one do you feed? Left-hand side or right-hand side? Body, mind, intellect, or your real spirit, yourself within? How can we reduce it? We can, a practical way, is by starting to practice unselfishness. Because when you start thinking about your family or your community, you're diluting the ego. It's not my body, my mind, my intellect, my family's body, mind, intellect. So the ego gets reduced. The other way we can do it is by gaining more and more knowledge. And that's what Vedanta is, about our real self. So we start moving more towards the spirit, the self. Less attention, less pampering, less thought on the body, mind, intellect. And one practical suggestion is try to avoid personalizing. Take a step back from a situation. Take the me and my out of it. Do you really have to use I in that particular phrasing? Do you have to introduce the person with the pronoun my? You say, this is my wife. Okay, does she have a name? Or is that her claim to fame? This is the person. Why does it have to be with reference to you? Sometimes, yes, it might be helpful. They're asking, are you married? Yes. Who is your wife? This is my wife. Okay, then it's understandable. But how quickly we highlight the me and the my. So that brings us to the end. Question of the week. What is ego? What causes it? And how do we reduce ego? And I'll end with a quote by Edward Carpenter, who summarizes how to relate to this ego. He says, there is no happiness unless you have clean dropped thinking about yourself. But you must not do it by halves. While even there is the least grain of self left, it will spoil it all. You must just leave it all behind and vouchsafe the personality and mind that much sympathy. As to any stranger, no more, no less. It is not no care, it is not no sympathy, it is the due sympathy. Don't exaggerate. Give it its due. And put the focus where the happiness is, the real spirit self within. We'll take up questions.
Question 1. How can we set boundaries in situations? Boundaries without hatred.
So the moment we set a boundary, it is potential hatred. Because what it does is, it means that as soon as there is a time where there is a threat to your side, where there's an encroachment on your side, where there is some kind of inconvenience, that's where the conflict will occur. So no one goes looking for a fight. Some do. You set a boundary. But the trouble is, because you set a boundary, you've created the otherness. And when there is a dispute or when there is a conflict, it could be over resources, it could be over points of view, it could be over sharing. For instance, we have certain states in India that share a river. Now you've got a boundary, but you've got a common resource. How do you share it? How can we set boundaries without hatred? A flexible boundary. Flexible boundary means at the moment, I am not capable, Sudhakar, of practicing this quality, not hating any being, right? It's too much. I hate too many people at the moment. Let's move on to the next quality. No. Flexible boundary. And what it means is, start with those you love. So you've got a circle, you've got your family. Let's aim for universal love. We're not there yet. Maybe we can't conceive it. Okay, let's aim for all human beings. And right now, my boundary is my family. That's what I'm capable of, feeling-wise, understanding-wise. But I would like for that feeling to expand. How is it when we were bachelors? Most of the feeling was for ourselves. And then once you get married and you have children, suddenly you get introduced to a whole new range of feelings. You realize how selfish you are. In order to relate or take care of a person, how much it involves. So these new feelings start developing and you experience this affection, this oneness, this love for your spouse and for your kids. But why should it stop there? Let your family be the center, but not the boundary of your affection. So instead of, as we grow and as we evolve, instead of putting walls, let's build longer tables. Means as we grow and evolve and we're able to conceive more, instead of being more protective of our circle, let's see how many more we can include. And remember, this is at the feeling level. At the action level, the execution might be different. So for instance, you can love other kids as you do your kids, but it doesn't mean you have the obligation to feed and clothe and educate all other kids. That's different. The feeling is different from the execution. But why should you not have the feeling for other kids? No doubt you have to take care of your kids. That's your responsibility, your direct obligation. But why should the feeling be limited? Next question. So flexible boundaries.
Question 2. Would hating somebody be equivalent to not liking somebody? Hate is a very strong feeling as compared to not liking. How can love be expanded to bad people like criminals, etc.?
No, would hating be equated to not liking someone? There is a difference in intensity. So not liking, it hasn't gone to that extremity. When we don't like something, it's because it's not in line with what we desire. If that desire becomes very strong and that desire is obstructed, it's not just a dislike anymore. It becomes hate. So it's a question of intensity. So a dislike is on its way to becoming hate. Unless we manage it, we manage the dislike. So that's the first part. So you're right. It's a question of intensity of emotion intensity of the desire that is being obstructed. If it's not a strong desire, it's just a dislike. If it's a very strong desire and it's obstructed, hate. And then the second part. The second part was, if we could put up it, how is it possible to, how can love be expanded to bad people like criminals? So this is where we have to use what is that common denominator. They're a human being. And this human being may not have had the upbringing, the education, the opportunities as you. Boris Maeterlinck, he's a playwright and philosopher from Belgium. He says, "Oh, happy and blessed hour, when wickedness, criminal, when wickedness stands forth as goodness bereft of a guide." What it means is you will be a happier person if instead of seeing that person as wicked, bad, criminal, you see them rather as goodness without a guide. They have the same spirit and self within them. They do not know the way to happiness. Misguided. Why would anyone choose a way that is going to make them more agitated? It is a lack of thinking. It is sheer ignorance. And we are able to have this. In fact, one of the qualities that we will discuss in detail is forgiveness. We're able to have this with children. When we find a child misbehaving, we correct the child, we guide the child accordingly, but there's no lack of love because we understand the child lacks education. Criminals lack spiritual education. But what is your vision? So in order to reach that kind of vision, we've got to x-ray through, find the common denominator, have this broader understanding of human nature. Next question.
In a situation where a person in power is very egoistic and abuses his power, his actions can affect many in a negative way. How should one observing this handle the agitations and ill feelings that may arise within himself? The second question, is ego always bad? Don't we need some degree of ego?
It depends what your position is. So if you are in a position where you can change the atmosphere, where you have the opportunity to say something to that person, you can try. But if you're not in that position, if it's a person who is in a position of superiority and is using their power and is causing harm to others, hurting their feelings, etc., it's a case of accept. It is the way of the world. The more powerful takes advantage of the less powerful. You can only do what is within your capacity. We see this in the animal kingdom. We see this in the world constantly. Those who have the might, use it. There are very few who have the enlightenment or the education to use power for what it's intended to be used for, which is not to extract, which is not to take care of the ego, but actually to serve. Because that is where the power is, that is where the happiness is. So what you can do, if at all, is to help others understand the nature of that person. That they will behave like that, and you need not get affected by it. So whilst it might be harsh, by understanding the nature of it and preparing and finding strategies or different ways of looking at it will go a long way to help the person manage that daily meeting with the person. And is ego always bad? So there is a positive side to ego. The trouble is that it's short term. The positive side is that it gives you a temporary kick. It gives you a temporary happiness. When you read sometimes the page 3 or the back page in some countries, it's got all the gossip, the rumors. Which celebrity did what, what's happening here, what's happening there. And we read about somebody lost all their fortune. And why is celebrity news so followed? And what it does subconsciously is it puts the other person down, and subconsciously your ego gets the lift from it. And that kick is the pleasure that you get. But it is not a positive pleasure. It's a negative pleasure, like an itch. You scratch an itch. It doesn't make the wound any better. It makes it worse. So in the long run, it's going to cause more agitation and separation from the world. So can it be used to some degree? You can also use it if you're working with particular colleagues. You can use it also for short-term gains. You can flatter them. You can boost their ego. You say, you're doing a wonderful job. Keep it up. And it gets the ego going. And they get motivated. So you can use it for a short-term injection. So that could be a positive use. Very nice hairstyle. Did you change something? Have you lost weight? Oh, really? You noticed? Yes, I've been reducing my carbs. It has some temporary benefit. Understand that you're using it for a particular purpose. But otherwise, be careful of the ego. It entertains you, but then leaves you to weep. So that's all we have time for. But this is pretty much the format that we're going to be having over the Sundays that we spend together. And if you have any suggestions for questions, feel free to message it through and we'll take them up. Otherwise, until next Sunday, all the best, everyone. Have a good week.